So in this video we're going to go through campaigns. Campaigns is a feature that has been added to the system, and it's a further integration with the Outlook Exchange sending process and ultimately retrieval of replies. And it's effectively a way in which you can, when sending a bulk email, follow the activity of that email. So understand how many recipients actually received the email, who read the email, and who replied to the email, and have that kind of analysis from campaigns that you're running. This workflow is run quite straightforward from the search or from lists or from a requirement if you're sending to multiple candidates. And ultimately, when you're sending out a bulk email, as you would, there's now a new option here called campaigns, and that allows you to obviously either create a new campaign where you give it a name, or from the associate current campaign option, you can actually select existing campaigns and associate the activity of this campaign to that other campaign that you may have done in a previous event. But step one is ultimately to go into Outlook and just configure how we're going to deal with the responses. So we'll do that first. So the first step is to configure Outlook to manage the responses that are going to come back as part of processing the activity of our campaigns. So when we send out our bulk email, we're going to be looking for delivery receipts, we're going to be looking for read receipts, and we're going to be tracking obviously undeliverable as they come back in. And in Outlook, that takes the format of a receipt message that is sent back to your email account, either as a read receipt or delivery, obviously as undeliverables. And what we obviously don't want this to do is go into our inbox and obviously clog up our inbox full of reads and delivery receipts. So step one is to firstly create some folders for where we're going to want those receipts to go into, subfolders that is, and then the next step is to go into the rules area and actually create rules which will configure when those receipts come in, mapping them straight away to that subfolder, so you obviously don't have to physically see them and deal with them in your inbox. That's done by, and you can see here I've got an undeliverable rule, a delivered rule, and a read receipt rule. But if you go to new rules and we select move messages from someone to a folder, we hit next there. We're looking for basically specific words to be contained within the subject. And then what we can do is we go into this area, we click on specific words, and in this case, let's say we're looking for the read receipts. You type in read and the semicolon ending, and you hit add, and that puts the read receipt as a search there. Hit OK, and then we're going to say that we're going to move emails that contain read receipt in the subject to this specified folder. So I'll click there and we hit read receipts there because that's the folder that I'd created. Hit next there. We'll stop processing any more rules once we obviously handle this email when it comes in. We'll move it to that specified folder. There's no exceptions in relation to this rule, and then obviously we give the rule a title and name it read, as you see I've done here, and that effectively what that will mean then, and you'll be able to obviously test it and see it working, but when you get those obviously reads and delivery receipts and undeliverables, they'll be again mapped into those subfolders as you need them to be. And obviously colleague from a email logging perspective is looking out for those receipts, looking out for those deliverables, and is obviously logging those against the records and mapping it to the associated campaign. So from a workflow perspective, and we covered this very briefly before, as mentioned, from either a search or from the lists area if you're bulk emailing from lists, or from requirement candidates if you're bulk emailing candidates that you put forward to a requirement, you'll have this ability when you're generating an email to select this option of campaigns. So step one obviously is to physically create the campaign in the sense that you want to give the bulk email a name. So we'll call it example campaign. You also have the option as well to put an expiry date to the tracking of the stats as well. So if you're only interested in monitoring the tracking of the stats over the course of the next week, then you can put an expiry date to the campaign. If you don't want to do that, then obviously you can leave that indefinitely in place, and obviously that will be present there to review. When a campaign obviously has been created, it's basically just put the campaign name in the title bar there. It's linked now with this email. Obviously from a email sending process, everything else stands the same. You would obviously use whatever email template or whatever email that you're planning on sending. Obviously send off the email as you need to, and then it just in the background it obviously creates a record that it's now got a new campaign and it's now tracking it. Obviously delay delivery works alongside this as well, and yeah, you'd hit send there and obviously send off the campaign. The other option, as I mentioned before, and if I just remove the campaign quickly, the other option that I mentioned before was this option of associate a current campaign. So again, if you've got an existing campaign that you're monitoring and you're sending bulk emails and continually associating those emails with that campaign to give you an overall, then yeah, ultimately you have that option here of clicking associate current campaign. It will retrieve a list of your historical campaigns that you've created. You select which campaign you're looking to associate to, hit OK there, and obviously then it associates the historical campaign obviously with your new one. If I jump over to campaigns now, this is an example campaign. So when we're in the campaigns area, and obviously as you just saw there, the campaigns area is accessed by going to this campaigns option off the left navigation. It's just beneath lists. What you'll see is firstly your campaigns that are against your user. However, you do have access to be able to switch and view the campaigns of other users as well. But effectively you'll be given an overview of the different campaigns that you've created, and ultimately some summary on the stats that are related to that campaign. So you'll have the campaign name. The scope will obviously be the type of records that were sent the campaign, candidates or contacts, no doubt. The expiry date, obviously if you're tracking the expiry or tracking the stats up to a certain date. And then obviously an overview on the stats in the sense of how many emails were sent, how many were delivered versus were not, how many were read and how many were not, and how many were replied to. So it gives you a feel for the engagement that you received based on that email campaign. If we select that campaign, it will drill down to show you the specific records that are associated with the email that went out, and ultimately again showing you the specific stats that are related to that specific candidate or contact. You will be able to sort by these numbers as well, so you can give obviously filter to the top the ones that you're particularly interested in perhaps, but ultimately if you click on any of these candidates, again beneath there you'll then have an overview on obviously the email that was sent to them, when it was delivered to them, when the email was read, when the email was responding to as well will also be included. So you have a view there of obviously the specific stats associated to that candidate, but also an overview of the stats associated to the campaign in general. You do have the ability to also delete a campaign as well if you no longer wish to monitor the stats there. Obviously you can just highlight it and hit delete. If we go to a candidate record quickly and just show you the history, just to highlight how this works. With regards to the logging of replies specifically, what you'll notice is when you're looking at the email history, in the history there, you'll see on the linked records that there'll be a linked record of campaign. So that's how the email history is linked back to your campaign specifically. There is a campaign ID which is embedded within the HTML that's sent, and ultimately it's looking for that ID and obviously tracking it back to your campaign that way. But that's just how the data is stored obviously in the system when campaigns are sent.